big break in TV. Let the fun time begin.
Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to episode 2 of The Last of Us. Yes, we are 2 episodes deep into this really crazy big show. I think I've talked to so many people this week who are just all about this show, which is great. You know, being a big fan of the video games, I'm excited that this is finally getting some broader exposure. Not to say they were small fan bases to begin with, but you know, all those people who'd never pick up a video game are actually starting to check up this show. So that's a win in my book.
Question for you. You're more into the video game space than I am. Would you say The Last of Us is probably the biggest video game out there that could be translated like this? I mean, I'm not talking about the iconic things like Super Mario or things like that that might not be able to translate as well, or is like The Last of Us probably the most cinematic, biggest property out there that could be translated like it is?
One of them. I'd say you get a lot of those PlayStation exclusives that they do rely a lot on like the cinematic nature of their gameplay. You know, because then when you have that discussion, then things like Uncharted get brought up, which
Mhm.
if you know we had an adaptation of that, but it wasn't the purest adaptation. You know, if it was kind of treated the way the show is being treated, I think that could be a big one. God of War is a huge property that I think could really knock it out cinematically. You know, there's a ton of stuff out there that I think would really, you know, do well, even if we're not just talking PlayStation, but like all across consoles and PC. We're talking about like Red Dead Redemption would be a great Western to bring to television like
Yeah.
this. There are a few properties, but I would say this is probably one of the ones that a lot of people who play games would say this would be the easiest to transition because of just how cinematic and how well written the stories are
Yeah.
for the actual game itself. Because it very much plays like a TV show. Like I've said many times, season or Last of Us Part 2, when I was playing that, felt like I was watching episodes of a TV show as I was playing.
Yeah, and that's where, I kinda get into it where it's like, you mentioned God of War, again, I'm not the biggest video game guy, but things like, I think was Dead Space been talked about? Uh,
They've mentioned that Carpenter has some interest in that. We
yeah,
talked about that on Sunday Scaries a few months
yeah,
ago, but even that has had a couple of pokes and prods recently of people saying that he may produce that one. So,
and
yeah.
and that's where, I kinda get into, like, something like God of War or even like a Dead Space or something where they almost become almost too video game-ish, that it might be a struggle for a general audience to kind of resonate with, where it's like,
What's your perception on God of War right now? I'm just curious. Are you thinking like the older games?
yes, I have no concept of any newer game
Okay, the
at
new
all.
ones are extremely cinematic. They are very much like movies. Walking into it, they play very similar to like Last of Us. So it's like I think that's the version that they'd be bringing to screen.
I mean more so in terms of a concept to hit it, like where you kind of get the notion that it's based on a video game, if that makes sense. Where it's like God of War is something where most people can't put themselves in that kind of headspace. I think whereas Last of Us, you can at least resonate with the general characters. Uh, where some of the, when you get into space, when you get into stuff like that, it might be. I feel like maybe a little harder of a concept for fans.
I think that you need to look into the last two God of Wars because it's a father son story, and like he's got somebody to take care of. It's kind of similar to The Last of Us in a
No,
sense.
no, I'm more so mean. Isn't his skin like ash of something or other? And
Oh,
he's
but
become
they've updated it so well in these new games that it's like it looks so realistic. Like I think that would translate really well.
okay.
Personally, I think they could do that in a very realistic sense. But I mean, hey, as far as video game adaptations go, episode 2 is still pretty damn strong in my opinion. And I would say this episode felt more like a video game than the last, because it definitely feels like when you're traveling through The Last of Us and you're moving from building to building here and, you know, situation by situation. But what really impressed me in this episode was the character work. I loved the slow moment at the beginning of just talking about her bite and everything. Because I know that was a big criticism for people online of like they just kind of brushed past that. I had a feeling that was going to turn into a bit more of a conversation, because it doesn't necessarily work out like that in the game. They
Yeah.
kind of deal with it right after the a soldier incident, but in the show, obviously, they didn't set it up like that. But I do enjoy that, and we really actually got to see Bella Ramsey play up a lot more Ellie this time,
Mm-hmm.
and I love her. I think she's doing a great job.
Yeah, she was one of the highlights for me, just the interactions she's had with Joel and everything like that. There were a few laugh out loud moments I think that she had brought to this episode. I thought was
Hmm.
really great, and I'm eager to see the more Joel interaction she has. Also, kind of a somber note, obviously, with Tess and everything. So I thought that was this episode. What was the runtime here? I think like 50 minutes or something. So
It was a little
considerably,
shorter, yeah.
yeah,
It
considerably
was.
less than that first episode, so I wasn't really sure what they were gonna jam pack into this episode. And again, we talked about me not really playing the video game. I just knew, it was mostly Joel and Ellie, so I kind of had a notion of maybe where we were gonna go. I just didn't know it was gonna be this early. And I think they left it on a very compelling note for that character. Because it's like it seemed like they had to put in a lot in this episode. But again, it didn't feel jam packed in terms of we weren't getting the moments that we needed to get here. So I think it was all paced perfectly and really ended on that strong note.
Yeah, and if you played The Last of Us, then you knew what was coming for Tess. You kind of understood that she wasn't going to be around the very long into their
Yeah.
journey, because now we meet a lot of characters along the way in this space, and then obviously they all kind of end up playing a major role into just shaping the relationship between Joel and Ellie. And Tess is a big one, though. This is definitely something that you could tell, especially towards the end there. I think that the actress they have playing her did a really great job. And I'll get her name just because I don't want to
She's
just
from
say that.
Mindhunter, so
Yeah, she is. That's where I remember her from.
that's what I was curious if
Um,
we were gonna get some extra time with her just because of the casting there. I was like, oh, maybe
I
we will.
knew, just because, like I said, playing the game, I just knew that was what was going on, what was going to happen there. But yeah, Anna Torva, Torv. Yeah, she's also from Fringe, but yeah, she did a really great job here. Bring that emotion to it. I love the aspect of her, just telling Joel that maybe just have faith for one time, please, because like
Yeah,
again, just showing the degradation of her bite versus Ellie's. It's
yeah,
just like you can see it's night and day. But I also enjoy the aspect of them really playing into it, and they do it in the games too, of just like the doubt, because you can tell this world has been ravaged for over 20 years, so it's crazy. One point I do want to touch on that I'm really still enjoying a lot is the context that we're getting at the beginning of these episodes. So, what we saw at the beginning never happened in the games. They never went to Indonesia. They never introduced us to a doctor character who got to see the cordyceps virus and play. And that is really, I think, some of the best additions to this story, in my opinion. I love seeing just kind of the first few days or the build up to this, because in The Last of Us, like I said, in the first episode, you really just pick up right when Joel comes home from work, and then Sarah wakes up, and we just kind of get right into it.
yeah.
So now just being able to live in this world and see the build up, it's some of the most interesting stuff as someone who's familiar with the story goes.
No, yeah, and I think those are great additions. Again, me not knowing the video game too much, I do like that they're adding this kind of connective tissue a little
Mhm.
bit. And the opening here, I really did enjoy. I didn't know if that was part of the video game at all or not, but I really did like to seeing like kind of this fungus at play, and when they're cutting open one of the now deceased patients there, and then as she's pulling the fungus out of the throat and it's kind of still alive, I thought was stuff that is going to linger with you. So I really do
Mhm.
hope that they continue kind of giving you this extra context throughout the episodes, because sometimes when you do the flashbacks, especially when you start getting deep into these episodes, sometimes it tends to linger a little bit too long. But I think this one worked perfectly. And some of the visuals in here are just absolutely
Oh
stunning.
yeah.
And just from like color schemes alone, like when the doctor's sitting there drinking the tea or coffee with the yellow couch and just the wallpaper and everything, I thought was absolutely beautiful. When they're going into the old hotel, the green chairs, I thought was absolutely stunning. And just giving you the context of how all the inner workings are with this fungus and stepping on it, and it awakens so many different ones. And again, me being more so introduced to this world, I thought was a really creative way to kind of tie in everything, and again brings it full circle back toward the end of the
And
episode.
in the game, you dealt with a lot of sectors that had spores, and spores were kind of the major infection point in this. So the little tendrils coming out of the mouth and stuff,
Yeah.
that's all made for this show. So that's not how it worked in the game at all.
Okay, well,
So,
that's a
and
great
like the
addition.
tendrils, how they work and communicate like
Yep.
that wasn't there either. So it's all because they really honestly had to sit back and think. That's fine and dandy. They were able to make it work for their story. But I guess it was Craig Mazin, the showrunner, just he couldn't buy the fact that if we had spores and it was airborne like that, that it would, really make this tough for him to kind of convince us that, not everybody would be getting sick left and right.
Yep.
So they had to change it and make it more of a physical thing. And I think it works beautifully for this. I really like the adaptation, but the beauty of it is that it doesn't completely, change much about the clickers. The clickers are still what they are, and you got to see some now this time, like in the flesh for real. We all did, and I got to say the makeup is stunning. I love it. I think that they really nailed the look of those. They look gross and creepy, and I love the color on them. How did you feel about them?
Again, me not knowing too much and seeing that, I think one of the initial trailers, I knew like the clickers were a big talking point, and I love the beginnings there. Where we're out there with Joel, Tess, and Ellie, and Ellie's kind of going through, all the things that she's heard, and she's describing them, and they kind of just share a look, and they don't really say anything, and they kind of just move past the topic. And then as we're getting into the hotel, and they're thinking that there is or the museum, and there's some threat there, and you're kind of just building and building and building, and then finally you hear that noise, and finally seeing them on screen like that. And we saw a little bit in the trailer, but it wasn't really a main focus. They kind of kept them hidden a little more, and being able to see them, I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And it's like just the melding that they can do here again, where we've been through so much post-apocalyptic kind of zombie things. What can you do to make a unique property? And I think that the idea of kind of this whole fungus idea, I think, is so smart. And then kind of these different stages that we get from the beginnings of the infection till the later points there. And I think that it was absolutely terrifying, but again very beautiful. So I really bought the way that the look, the way that they were being portrayed. I love that they're fast moving, and just the fights with Joel, I think, were great as well. So everything with the clickers really worked for me.
I agree. I thought that they were really well represented. A couple spots I could tell that they were switching between CG and an actual person there, but I think that it really came in, as seamlessly as you can get it, especially for a show that has so much like destruction in the background, and I think it all blends beautifully.
Yeah.
Those skyscrapers leaning against each other, I love it every time they pan up to it. It's so intricate and interesting, and very much grounds you in that world. What I'm really excited to see next is because clickers are not just the only infected that we deal with. We deal with things like runners and bloaters as well. So I'm excited for you to kind of get more introduced to those as well. You
Yeah.
can kind of get in your head of what those are going to kind of be like. But yeah, they are interesting. But truly, the thing that I am most excited about is we're going to have to probably wait, unless they adapt it now, until The Last of Us 2, whenever they get into that timeline. But I am going to show you this real quick. This is we'll kind of come back to that when the ad's done. But yeah, this is a really interesting enemy type that you get to battle. And here it is. This is what happens when they are all, because this is technically in the city. It is like in a hospital room at the bottom of a parking deck, and it was kind of segmented. I believe it was segmented as ground zero for the city of Seattle.
Okay.
All of these infected were left in there for so long that these humans and clickers and everything melded together.
Oh, perfect.
And it's very much reminiscent of the Thing and everything. So I'm so excited. I only bring that up to detour us a little bit because that's the thing I'm excited to see in this show. I'm excited to see what they're going to do when it comes to that. I want to see more, risk taken with that. I want to see the clickers kind of evolve as the show goes on, especially because I don't know when we're going to get the next game. And I hope that this show can go on for, a few seasons, depending on how they tell the story. And, they are going to probably take more liberties. So I'm excited to see more creativity like that in this show.
Yeah, and knowing Craig Mazin's work and the kind of love that he has, I listened to his podcast with John August, and they talked while he was working on the show and the love that he's had even prior to being signed on for this. You can tell that it's going to be so intricate for him, and to be able to bring those kind of special effects that he's going to and really play in this world. I'm really excited to see some amazing things. I think clickers were a great start. You brought up a couple of other things that I have zero concept for. At least with the clickers, I did have an idea of what those were
You'll
going to
know
be.
when you see them.
So I love this concept of there these varying ideas as the infected go on for longer and longer, and what that kind of iterations that they turn into. Because clickers are already a very threatening kind of look, I think. So to kind of even get farther in and more in depth, I think is just going to be even more fun. And this is great, opening up the Last of Us world here, like you said, with the buildings and everything. It's got such a unique voice here. And it's like when there's so many things that have been done in 2023, I think Last of Us being brought onto the screen is, again, giving it such a unique voice.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about the show that's been so exciting to see again. Like I said at the top, having people who just weren't interested in this, or, had interest but were intimidated by, playing it, sitting down and actually having to play a game. People like my dad, who's not much of a modern gamer, very excited for this. Love the first episode. I'm sure he's going to love this series as it goes on. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's great to see the attention to detail, and people kind of getting introduced to this and it feeling at times just like it felt in the video game, but also having its own unique voice with the stuff that they're adding into it and just how they're changing the story a little bit here and there. But again, it's just a very beautiful adaptation. I would really like to say at the end of this, I think it's like 8 episodes, 10 episodes, that, this is how you adapt a video game to television.
Yeah.
And so far, it's working great. I got to say another thing that worked great, but it's also, adapted from a book more so than a game, is The Witcher, because I also thought that was really strong as well. So it's kind of like if you look at those two shows, that'll kind of show you it's just like the kind of seriousness and the attention to detail and respect for the material that you have to kind of have success with these kind of things.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're getting it perfectly. Again, someone who's not really married to the video game in the slightest, it's very easy for me to kind of be dropped into this world and find it believable and just get lost for whatever the runtime is. Which again, I love here that they're kind of giving them it's not a hard 60 minutes or anything like that. They're kind of giving him that room to say whatever episode, whatever you need in order to tell this part of the story, go for it, which I love because it kind of keeps you on your toes guessing of how long the episodes are going to be, and they feel, they have that natural endpoint as well. Everything about this so far has been a plus. I mean, again, the ending, very compelling, such a somber note, but again, it gets you excited for episode 3.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And did you see the preview for episode 3?
Yes.
I'm excited for you to meet these characters.
Yeah, it's
And it looks like that episode is going to be an hour and 20 minutes, IMDb reports. So, again, like you said, they kind of just let it run. Some episodes will be shorter, some will be longer. I think Disney kind of did that too with The Mandalorian, because some
Yes. Yep.
episodes of that show are about an hour, some are 40 minutes. So, it's one of those things where it's like, I kind of like the free flowing nature of that. It is tough to kind of have that Walking Dead formula where it's like, it has to be 60 minutes, like you said, every episode. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Episode 3 is probably going to be pretty awesome if we follow into the footsteps of what I think is going to happen. And I'm excited for you to see it. I'm excited for you to meet some of these characters. I'm excited to see some of these portrayals because so far they've been bang on with everybody they've casted. And this is one of those casting choices that I was kind of like, that makes more sense. And I never would have thought about doing that. But I like it a lot. So I'm definitely excited for episode 3. And yeah, I'm all in on The Last of Us. It's another great episode. If I had to say, I probably liked episode 1 a little bit more. It was more impactful to me. But again, this one really made me feel like I was back in the world traveling through The Last of Us.
Yeah, and I'll say that I enjoyed episode 1 a little bit more, maybe just because of the length, and it kind of gave you a little extra with everyone. Plus, that the opening 20 minutes of that are just unbelievable, I think. But again, episode 2 very strong, kind of getting into this world, trying it on, seeing how it fits. And it fits perfectly so far. So yes, I am very excited for episode 3, even more excited for the runtime. So we will see next week what it has in store for us.
Absolutely. But alrighty, guys, that's going to wrap us up here for episode 2 of The Last of Us. Definitely let us know what you guys thought down below. What did you like about the episode? Were there any dislikes, any criticisms you want to throw at it? Other than that, we got a lot of great content up on the channel. We just had Sunday Scaries drop earlier today. And if you don't have the time to watch the whole 27 minutes, we are trying a new thing where we're kind of splitting that up for little bite-sized pieces of content for you. So let us know if you like that, if you're enjoying that, as well as check out our interview with director Kyle Edward Ball about Skinamarink, which was this week. Everybody's really responding nicely to that, as well as some Friday the 13th reboot news that we covered on Friday. So, perfect time for everything, I'd say. It was a busy week, and I'm excited to see what awaits us in the coming days.
Horror is always thriving.
Absolutely. But already, until next time, guys, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.